It's almost time for Boston's annual migration of college students, and when there's an influx of students, you have an outpouring of trash and old furniture, not to mention double parked vehicles and complaints from the neighbors. Once again, the city's trying to make it the best possible transition for all concerned. To tell us what's planned is the Mayor's Chief of Civic Engagement, Jerome, and the Commissioner of Inspectional Services, William Christopher. Thank you very much for being with us. I want to start with William Christopher. First of all, you want everything to be in shape, because the last thing you want to hear is that there was a problem that you missed and then something really bad happens down the line.
Absolutely. We feel that trying to get the message out as early as we can so that we can assist in making sure that everything is up to the standards that we expect is really important. The worst thing that happens to us is on move-in day, we go into a unit that excuse me, is not acceptable. Then we have to scramble to make sure those students get appropriate housing, and we have to then deal with the landlord. So we're trying to be a lot more proactive. As you know, we've rolled out the 311 call-in center so that everybody can call in. It's a single source that they can call in and get all the resources of the city at their disposal. And we want people to understand that we want it to be proactive, not reactive. So from this point forward, anybody who has any questions or thoughts or even concerns, if a landlord has a house or a unit that he's not sure will pass, we would love him to call us now. We'll send out an inspector. There'll be no fines. There'll be no violations. We work with them to make sure that when the students do move in, that it's all a positive event.
Jerome Smith, I mentioned these double parked vehicles, but that's also an avoidable problem, and I guess now you're trying to make it easier to avoid.
Yeah, we are trying to, we all know that it's not just students that move in on September 1st. If you look at the leases, it's across the city. Everybody who has a lease pretty much rents September 1st to September 1st. And so how do we coordinate that, and how do we make sure that with the influx of all the students that come in, but also everybody just doing their daily lives, how do we keep things moving? And so I think this, the Commissioner and I are working with this whole task force, and it really is a cross-department effort that we're doing. And we just have been spearheading it now, and we did it for the first time together last year, and it was definitely an interesting experience actually being able to go door to door and talking to families and residents and seeing what it's actually like, because normally what I've heard is from residents who've called in and said this is the experience, but now I've actually was on the ground with the Commissioner actually seeing day to day the traffic and the unloading and the loading and everything.
I'd love to add to this that the Mayor has seen it. The Mayor has seen it firsthand, and he has given us all the resources of the city. He wants this to be a positive event. He doesn't want it to be negative, so that he's empowered us to make sure that we reach out to all the departments in whatever resources. Michael Dennehy, the Commissioner of Public Works, his team does an incredible job at making sure that the debris and the garbage is removed. The violations and the penalties, that's the secondary part of it. The major thing is to make sure that we keep the streets flowing. The police department does a fantastic job. We're redirecting, traffic is redirecting one-way streets so that the fluidity of neighborhoods can be really enhanced.
Jerome, I remember getting a permit for a moving truck a couple of years ago. It was not a pleasant experience. You're waiting in line, a contractor behind me barking out orders on his cell phone. I guess you're making it easier.
We're streamlining the way you can get permits. You can now apply for a permit online, and then you can go and you can pick it up, or you can get one and apply for one, have it printed out and handed to you at the Boston City Hall to-go truck. And so the truck is scheduled so you can see online when it's going to be in your neighborhood and stationed there, and you can just walk up and pull the parking permit or the moving permits. But you can still come into City Hall the traditional way. But we're trying to find as many different ways that we can make this smoother for people, because we understand, just like you had to come into City Hall up on the 7th floor and you wait in this long line. It's probably like 40 minutes of your day just to get that, and then have to go out and put it on the pull. So we're trying to do things in this day with technology. We're trying to make things smoother. And so that's why we're going to continue to push for everybody to download the 311 app, and also use to call 311 anywhere in the city of Boston. If you're in Boston proper, you can dial 311 and connect. And if you're outside the city limits, you can use the old number, which was 635-4500. So as we sit down as a team and talk about how we're doing these different things, like moving permits is a good example about how it was just one thing that we found that was causing kind of headaches and kind of like a little road barrier to be efficient, and we're trying to make it simpler.
William Christopher, one of the things you're trying to do here, as far as spreading out the traffic of the move, is you got to talk to a number of different parties here. You got universities, you've got property owners, so talk about making that work better.
Oh yes, and again, working with Jerome's group on civic engagement, for the past year we have been meeting once a month with landlords, universities, trying to work out their concerns and what our expectations are. So it's been an ongoing process. It's not something that we've picked up 3 weeks ago and are moving forward. We've been working on this all year. We've reanalyzed our allocations of staff from last year, where we put command centers. One of the things we're finding very interesting is that the concentrations of students is moving across the city. You know, we had our 3 localized areas that are still, you know, the most intense spots. But all of a sudden now we're seeing a great influx into areas of South Boston. We're seeing, you know, student housing in Charlestown. And these were areas in the past that didn't have big concentrations. So it's, and the analysis of the data that we've created from last year that we're actually implementing into our plans this year, and with the additional data, we'll have a much better plan even for next year.
Jerome Smith, talk about how the 311 system will help the city coexist better, where, you know, because you could have neighbors, maybe they're not students, but, you know, the parties get really annoying, and what do you do with a situation like that?
So for the loud parties, I would encourage residents to call 911. I mean, a large party.
Now, not everybody thinks a party is an emergency, so you explain that. Yeah.
So, yeah. So a loud party. What we got to do is that if you're having a constant problem at a certain location, and not just parties, just any, if there's a building or a property or a business that is causing severe concerns in your neighborhood, and it's like a repeat thing, I would call 911. What we have, the commissioner and I work with on another part of our jobs, is the Problem Properties Task Force. And so student parties and student housing issues, and we every year we identify where the problem houses are. And the task force can do, because what we can do is we can put on the problem task force list after a certain number of 911 calls have been put to there, or a certain number of code violations that have been issued. We can bring them into the owner, into the task force, sit down and say, we have a problem in the neighborhood. This building has been identified. Here's the evidence of why it's a problem property. What can we do with you as the landowner to have a discussion with your tenants about how they're going to change the way that they're behaving in the neighborhood to allow everybody to live peacefully. And we're not saying that we're trying to crack down on student parties or them having a good time and socializing. They're part of the neighborhood. You know, they contribute a lot to our local economy when they're actually in town. So it's not trying to be punitive against students, but it's also, you know, for residents who are here and are having this problem, I would say call 911. 311's for the non-emergency stuff, you know, potholes, streetlights, trash, things like that.
And you're going to have more trash pickups, of course.
Yes, we're gonna definitely have the trash. Public Works will be all out, hitting the streets. You know, inspectors will be out as well. You know, we're looking for various things like maybe construction debris. Gives us a signal that maybe someone's done some work recently inside the unit. Did they pull a permit? Is it safe? It allows the inspectors the opportunity to step into the property and look and say, well, this room shouldn't be here, and they can do their job and do what they do.
Professor, talk about some of the reforms that have been put in place in recent years, because you have more leverage to get into units and do inspections. We have closer tabs on where the students are living and if there are too many in a unit. Have you seen any significant change from this yet?
Yes, we actually saw over this past year the police reports and the overall violations were down. And we think that has a direct result from our last year's effort, where we really concentrated our resources on information, on helping people. So people were aware that we were looking. With the introduction of a lot of the analytics, we've been able to reuse our resources in a more positive way, so that we get the optimum value of all of the resources we put into a certain area.
And Jerome Smith, one more plug for 311 here, because if people haven't downloaded this yet, what's the advantage of what was there before? Over what was there before?
So 301, there's 9 ways for you can actually reach out to city services. And what we did is that they all had different names and they're all housed in different places. And what the mayor wanted to do is wanted to consolidate. So under his budget, he had consolidated all these different programs into one, into neighborhood services, of which the 301 system, which is the previous mayor's hotline, was folded into. But now it's all in one. It's all branded. It's all together. They all communicate together. And so we would encourage anybody, if you have a smartphone, to download 311. It's an amazing app. We've put 10 more different categories in there for people to go in. It's very user friendly, but it allows us to know what's going on. Maybe we've missed something in our normal routine of maintenance. But they can file in there, and then they get a job code back, and we communicate back and forth. And anytime their work request gets moved forward, they are notified of the progress of their workload, so they can check in and work with us. So I think it's just a two-way communication. So I would encourage everybody to download the app if you have a smartphone or tablet.
Thank you both very much for being with us, Jerome Smith and William Christopher.